I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Who's got a hammer? There's insanity in the control room.
What up, everybody? Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. Wednesday, half the week's over. We're deep into it. We're deep into it. You could say even 2 levels deep. All right, so we got an interesting show today. I know, a weird way to start the show, but when do we not start weird? In fact, we not only start weird, but we also keep it weird. That's just how we do it here. That's how we do it here. All right, so speaking of weird, we got some fun stories, as usual. We have Donald Trump, who's not happy about the indictment of a Republican from Nebraska. That's a fun story. I think you'll enjoy that. Got that starting at first. We got Meghan McCain, of course, who is no longer of The View. And she's got some words. She's got words for her former co-hosts. Interesting stuff. Or it's just her whining. Then we have Rudy Giuliani. Bizarre stuff. Fun times. I think you'll enjoy that. It may not be the 4 seasons, but just wait. Hilarious. And also super sad. And then we are going to, of course, go after anti-vaxxers as usual, like we do on the show. Because if it's one thing that I cannot stand, it's people who are anti-vax during the goddamn pandemic. So, you know, I'm just saying, like, I cannot stand it. I cannot stand them. I'm going to come after them. And by the way, a little bit of help from a CNN reporter, Drew Griffin, who interviewed probably one of the more prolific anti-vax doctors. So that's an interesting segment. A lot of stuff in there, a lot of information, a lot of nonsense to debunk, of course, as usual. Just the craziest crap that you will find from some of these so-called doctors that are really, of course, just snake oil salesmen. So that's fun. It's what I find fun, debunking nonsense. But then again, I'm not like normal people. I do a talk show. So this is what I've chosen to do with my life. Debunking nonsense is what it is. All right. So anyway, let's do it. Let's talk about Donald Trump getting mad. Okay. Anyway. Private school in Florida decided to put all its students into quarantine for 30 days if they get the vaccine. Sam, we did that story a couple days ago. You should check that out after the show. We're always putting out tons of content, at least 4 or 5 clips a day. So, like, yeah, a lot of stuff. All right. Anyway, Trump. On Tuesday night, Nebraska Republican Congressman and Trump ally Jeff Fortenberry was indicted on charges of lying to the FBI about some illegal campaign donations from a foreign billionaire. So I broke down the story yesterday. And so almost immediately after, former President Donald Trump issued a very angry, rambling statement, as usual, on this. Here's what he said. Isn't it terrible that a Republican congressman from Nebraska just got indicted for possibly telling some lies to investigators about campaign contributions? When half the United States Congress lied about made-up scams, and where Mark Zuckerberg, in my opinion, a criminal, is allowed to spend $500 million and therefore able to change the course of a presidential election, and nothing happens to them. Comey lied, Schiff lied, Crooked Hillary lied, McCabe lied, the 2 lovers, Peter and Lisa, lied. They all lied, having to do with Ukraine, because they knew it was a scam. I'm surprised he didn't say Russia. I guess he's tired of saying that. And they made up fairy tales about me knowing how badly it would hurt the USA, and nothing happens to them. Is there no justice in our country? Fairy tales. They made up fairy tales, everybody. Fairy tales. Wait, don't fairy tales usually have like either a happy ending or some sort of moral ending? We haven't seen really anything involving Trump like that. But anyway, worst fairy tale ever. Or in Trump's case, most tremendous fairy tale ever. People are saying, everybody's saying, most tremendous fairy tale. All right, anyway. So, is there any justice in our country? Well, there's a lot of injustice. I can agree with that. But here's the thing. Indicting someone for allegedly lying to investigators about foreign money is literally justice. I mean, it's going to go through the system as it should. Innocent until proven guilty, etc. And they'll find out if he indeed lied about knowing the source of that money. So again, if you're not familiar with the story, if you didn't see my breakdown yesterday, Jeff Fortenberry, along with 3 other Republicans, it's even the campaign of the 2012 campaign of Senator Mitt Romney. And this was his presidential campaign, by the way, and others received through straw donations money from this billionaire. Now, Fortenberry received about $30,200 to his campaign committee from a Nigerian Lebanese billionaire named Gilbert Shaguri. Now, Shaguri admitted, so he's already on record, and he's already paid out a fine of $1.8 million for willfully funding these campaigns, trying to influence elections by giving donations. So now Fortenberry faces a charge of scheming to falsify and conceal material facts and 2 counts of making false statements to federal investigators, according to ABC News. So as I broke down yesterday as well, once he found out that Fortenberry found out that people were starting to ask questions about that donation, he immediately did 2 things. So he split the donation in half. He gave $30,000 to 2 different charities, right? He split a $30,000 donation to 2 different charities, and then immediately set up a legal defense fund. This is a couple of years after he had received the donation in question. So, that's not shady at all, though. What are you talking about? No, that doesn't look bad at all. People are asking questions about a donation, and then immediately you make a donation to charity and basically getting rid of or trying to get rid of the evidence. Weird. So, no, it's actually not terrible or an injustice that he was indicted. They're literally attempting to get justice in this case for breaking campaign finance law, even though, I mean, technically he can say, and he's argued, I didn't know that the money had come from a straw donor, And therefore, he's not actually in trouble for getting the donation, but he is in trouble for allegedly lying to investigators about the source of the donation. So let's be very clear. So look, taking foreign money, obviously bad. Lying about it, obviously also bad. But I also think that taking any campaign money is bad. I mean, and the reason that I say that, or I should say the solution to that, is publicly financed elections. So get rid of the corporate money, get rid of the union money, get rid of the big billionaire donor money, get rid of all the out-of-state money, and just only go with publicly financed elections. That's it. And of course, with even, you know, that they should all get the same amount of airtime, etc., and the same amount of exposure, and actually really have a contest of ideas instead of a contest of who can raise the most money and buy the most airtime and buy the most mailers, etc., etc., etc. I think that if we did that, we would eliminate approximately 95% of all of our problem with political corruption. Get the money out. Just get the money out. But now Donald Trump, back to him, sees this as a way to feed into his ever-present victimhood narrative. Remember, conservatives would lament the oppression Olympics. I remember that. Well, it appears that they have now formed, in Trump, a gold medalist in the oppression Olympics. He's like, oh my God, I'm always so oppressed. And everybody around me, always so oppressed. I can't believe how badly they treated me and everyone else. All right, so it's even funnier that he goes after Facebook, which, by the way, by the time this video goes up, might not even be called Facebook anymore. So that's some ironic news. But all right. But he goes after Mark Zuckerberg, who, by the way, that platform, Facebook, I mean, there's a gigantic amount of pro-Trump disinformation that gets filtered through Facebook every day. And it was widely and uncritically shared on the platform for years until people started, of course, pushing back and saying, hey, maybe we should have like a fact check or something on there. But of course, if you do a fact check on Facebook, watch out, because usually the things that get fact checked the most happen to be right-wing pages because they're often the ones that lie the most. Not to say that left-wing pages don't also at times put out disinformation. I've seen some cringy stuff from Occupy Democrats that wasn't true. But generally, most of the disinformation, the vast majority of it, comes from right-wing pages. Just saying. So, and by the way, some of the most top-performing Facebook posts are always from Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Fox News, Franklin Graham, Daily Caller. And once in a while, you'll get maybe in the top 10, New York Times and NBC News. That's it. Look at those left-wing sources. Wow. New York Times left-wing, give me a break. It's very, very obvious that the algorithm favors right-wing content, especially when it comes to engagement, because right-wing tends to be, look, stories that come out of the right-wing tend to be more anger-inducing, and that conservatives always angry, always outraged about something, and so they feed into that algorithm, and that spreads it, helps it propagate all over the place, gets that engagement, and then you've always got those pages in the top 10. Again, almost never, ever a real left-wing page. As I mentioned before, Occupy Democrats, which is kind of cringe and fairly clickbaity, well, they occasionally show up in that top 10. Interesting. So now Facebook algorithms, as I said, they constantly push right-wing pro-Trump content, but apparently that content is not pro-Trump enough. Because now, they've decided to fact check, and I don't like facts. Now, the reason, of course, Facebook fact checks is not because they have like a commitment to the truth. Oh, yes. We are the bastions of information and honesty and integrity. No. Facebook just doesn't want to chase away their advertisers, honestly. That's pretty much what it is. And generally, you don't get, and I should say, you scare away investors and you scare away advertisers when you have extreme right-wing content. Generally. But then again, you know, pro-corporate content, well, obviously they love that, which of course is what Ben Shapiro and all them do as well. Ben Shapiro kind of dresses up everything neatly and tries not to swear in a show, and it's really, really funny when he does say things that are like whenever he has to talk about sex, it's super, super uncomfortable for him. Like he can't do it. It's a very, very hard time. So, you know, we've got
wet ass P word.
Yeah. So we got a bucket and a mop. You know, my wife is she's a doctor, and she says that you might have something wrong with you if you have to get a bucket and a mop. You know, very, very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And so it's really funny. But again, he dresses it up in a way that is, I guess, more palatable to advertisers than some of the more extreme right-wing content. But generally, it tends to end up the same. You know, pro-cutting taxes on the rich, pro-deregulation, quote-unquote free speech, which is people being able to say the N-word without any kind of consequences. And again, that's what 90% of the free speech argument kind of from the right comes down to, is I want to say that word without any sort of consequences. Now, how dare you cancel me for saying something bad? Okay, sure. All right, but anyway, so now the other thing that's hilarious, and the thing that maybe Trump doesn't seem to understand, or maybe he does, politicians lie. Doesn't matter what side that they're on. And Democrats, Republicans, they lie. Now, Donald Trump, of course, lied constantly, consistently about the most ridiculous things. Oh, greatest crowd size, biggest crowd size ever in my inauguration. No, very clearly was not. Just, you know, lied about things that you didn't even need to lie about that were just nonsense, ridiculous. Okay? And so, all right. In fact, fact checkers have noted that Trump had lied over 30,000 times during his term. There were some real whoppers. But then again, okay, I mean, he's got that part down of being a politician, I guess. But it is a simple truth. If a politician is speaking, very likely they're lying to you. Remember, some of these whoppers, right? We're going to do a public option. What happened to that? Are they talking about a public option at all during a pandemic? Here's another one. I don't have the power to cancel student debt. Literally, yes, you do. But here's another big whopper. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. You remember that one? That's a classic. And best one, my favorite. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. So understand, lying, it doesn't matter. Politicians lie. Politicians lie all the time. And not only that, but they lie in campaign ads. And that is legal. That is considered to be free speech. Also, what's considered to be free speech in this country is lying in political ads, lying in the news. In fact, Fox News, as well as corporate media, they do lie a lot. And they're able to legally do so. Now, the things that get you in trouble is when you lie to investigators, when you lie to judges, when you lie to the police, when you lie to the FBI, when you lie to Congress. Now, of course, you could point out that that seems pretty hypocritical, the fact that the government and Congress can lie to you, can lie to us as regular people, but we can't lie to Congress, or else we get in trouble. So that's interesting in the fact that it's incredibly hypocritical of the government to do that. Nonetheless, that's the way that it is at this point. Probably do something to change that. But the point is, Fortenberry, going back to him, he did allegedly lie to the government, and that is considered to be a crime, and there's no problem with looking into that. And again, he's not the only one in the Trump orbit that has lied. You have Roger Stone. Roger Stone, around Trump, convicted of 7 criminal counts of obstruction of a congressional investigation and 5 counts of making false statements to Congress, as well as tampering with a witness. You had Michael Cohen, who pleaded guilty in November 2018, lying to Congress. Michael Flynn lied to the FBI. Now, Papadopoulos, George Papadopoulos, also pleaded guilty in 2017, lying to the FBI. So there's kind of a pattern here. Turns out if you lie to the FBI, you're going to get in trouble during an investigation. A couple of examples, just a couple of examples of how if it's shown and proven that you have lied to the FBI, well, then you're probably going to get some jail time, which might happen to our friend, Mr. Fortenberry. So, but then again, Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, says, I don't give a damn about the law. I don't care as long as the people are on my team. See, so the people on my team can lie every single day about anything, including myself, right? And I can lie all the time. But if you lie on, and you're not on my team, you're on the opposite team, well, then we're coming for you. It's totally unfair that, you know, that they can lie, but I can't. Whereas nobody should be lying. Nobody should be lying. But unfortunately, the truth of the situation is that there is a lot of lying and a lot of dishonesty in politics. So when he asks, is there no justice? Well, understand that for him, justice is anything that helps to serve him. And that, of course, makes him a total hypocrite. Free speech is not an absolute, and I'm suspicious of anyone who thinks so. I think freedom of speech includes lying. Bear that in mind. Okay? Thank you for weighing in. All right. So let's go to anti-vaxxers. Here we go again. CNN reporter Drew Griffin recently conducted an interview with the conspiracy theorist and anti-vaccine doctor Rashid Buttar, and it was bonkers. Look,
you believe the pandemic was planned?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
but you don't know by whom?
I have no idea.
And you don't know why?
Well, I suspect that there's the research that's coming now that would indicate that it's probably something to reduce the population or minimize reproduction rates.
Whoever Dr. Fauci is in your mind, he is a government bureaucrat, and you're comparing him to Hitler.
Well, I mean,
to Nazis.
I am.
Who killed 6 million Jews.
I think this number is going to be higher.
You think Dr. Fauci is involved in some kind of plot to kill millions of people? I just want to make sure I understand this.
Again, Drew, I'm a reasonable person. You're asking me what I think, and I said it could be this, but I can tell you that Dr. Fauci is not an innocent bystander. He's very well aware of what he's doing, and the extent of it and his involvement, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information.
Okay. Fascinating. So now I looked into this guy. I didn't really know much about him. But you look into him, and holy shit, he's got some predictions. So he says that everybody who's been vaccinated, he thinks that everyone who's been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine will be dead by 2025. What? I'm sorry, what? And that the reason, well, they're trying to depopulate the earth, obviously. Now, I don't think I should have to go into why this is insane. Because, I mean, it should be fairly obvious to people who are watching that this is crazy. Besides, if there was a way, like if you wanted to depopulate the earth, that would be a better way to do that. Or even if you wanted to reduce birth rates, you know what you do? You have contraception that is available. So birth control that is safe, that everybody has access to, and safe legal abortion. That would be one way to reduce birth rates. Again, we see this in modern countries. the Japanese birth rate has gone down. The United States birth rate has gone down. And so a lot of Western countries are having lower birth rates than countries that aren't as modernized technologically, and don't have women's rights, women's reproductive rights. And so the whole thing is bonkers. And here's the thing, right? So basically what he suggests is that, no, it's not that. It's a way to kill people, but we're doing so in engineering a virus. That's nuts. And here's the thing about conspiracy theorists, okay? They never realize that most of their theories fall apart under a little bit of scrutiny, right? And here's the thing. A lot of these conspiracies have so many different moving parts and are so complicated that when you really kind of dive into it and you kind of really look at it from an objective point of view, and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Weird. And the thing is, the more moving parts something has, the more people that are involved, the more likely it is to break down. And so that's the nature of conspiracies right there. And so while they're compelling, I find conspiracy theories endlessly fascinating. That's why I talk about them all the time. In the end, when you look at it, it doesn't make much sense. It makes a great movie, it makes a great novel, but it doesn't make sense in the real world. You see what I mean? Again, the people who believe it, it's kind of like the doomsday cultists, right? Y'all remember Y2K. Y'all remember that? 2012, even. Mayan calendar coming to an end, world 2012. Never happened. But they all said the same thing. I know the answer. I'm one of the unique individuals that has done all the research, i.e. looked on the internet. I've done all the research. I've looked at all this stuff, and I know that the world's going to end. I know this is going to happen. And except it didn't. And when it doesn't happen, they move the goalposts. It's an endless game of moving the goalposts in musical chairs. Okay? And so, and understand that, like, people keep believing in those things because they don't want to admit to themselves that they've been duped, that they've fallen for a scam. And I understand that. And nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. I get it. I get it. It's hard admitting that you're wrong or that you invested so much time in something that turned out to be false. Totally understand. And it's a very, very human thing. It's a very human reaction. And so, and I don't think that you're less of a person or necessarily a bad person or a dumb person for falling for a hoax. I think it does happen. It does happen. The thing is, you gotta get back into the real world. That's all I'm saying. But now, this isn't the only thing, the insane thing that to come out of this interview. In fact, there's more crazy things. Take a look.
Do you think the COVID vaccine works?
I think that the COVID vaccine is very effective at what it was designed for, perhaps, but it's not preventing death. Certainly not.
It's not preventing death?
No.
Even faced with indisputable facts, Buttar doubles down on his belief that life-saving vaccines are more dangerous than the virus itself.
People don't die from COVID. You've already seen the data. So why are we getting a vaccine that causes more deaths than the problem itself?
6.34 billion doses of this vaccine have been given. If you're right, people be dropping dead all around this whole.
It's not orchestrated to do that.
It's not orchestrated to do that.
Each vaccine has been geared up. So you can look at the ingredients of the vaccines themselves. It's all been published.
Complete the sentence. Each vaccine has been geared up for what?
Well,
there's a timed part?
Each vaccine is designed, it appears to be different. I don't know the details because I'm not a vaccine developer. We already see thousands of people dying. This Delta variant is all vaccine injury. I mean, the CDC's own data is showing that now.
That's just not true.
I don't want to be part of this mass genocide that I see happening. And I think that what's going on right now will be remembered as a worst time in history compared to what World War II happened.
I just want to be straight with you. I think you're crazy.
And I would agree, as I think with most normal people. Okay, so again, he's telling people, like, oh my God, the vaccine is much more dangerous than the virus that was obviously engineered and made up so that we could destroy the population of the earth for some unknown reason. And then says, I'm a reasonable person. I'm very reasonable. No, you're not. Nothing that you've said was reasonable at all. Nonsense. And by the way, and so understand, like, again, how the conspiracies fall apart, right? It's like, oh, every different vaccine is engineered differently. Well, they're all made by different companies, so they're going to have different formulas. But I've actually looked up what was in the Pfizer vaccine, and turns out, there was some salt, some polyethylene glycol, which is basically laxative, and then of course there's the mRNA and a couple of other like very mundane things. When you look it up, it is information that's publicly available. You don't find anything in there that is like insidious. You know what I'm saying? Total ridiculousness from this guy. But again, somehow, is he saying that every dose is different then? Like engineered to every person to then ultimately either kill them or not kill them? It doesn't make any sense. There's so much crazy. There's just so much crazy. It's bonkers. It's nonsensical. Oh, but you don't understand. The CDC's data says that. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Lying piece of crap. No. Look, the truth is unvaccinated people are dying from COVID-19 at a rate of 11 times more than people who have had the vaccine. That's it. And by the way, the argument there is, but they're not dying from COVID. They're dying from other things. COVID lowers your immune system, obviously. So yes, generally you get things like, for example, COVID-related pneumonia, because it affects the lungs. There's also heart issues as a result of the virus as well, because the things that it attaches to and goes to the rest of the body. And yes, by the way, people do also die of COVID. So, all right. But no, the argument there is, well, but people who have taken the vaccine, they're dying too. Okay, how is that related to the vaccine though? Can you draw like very direct correlation? And yes, by the way, I point out that there is a couple of cases where there are people that have had an adverse effect to a vaccine and died. It's incredibly rare that there were some. I think for the Janssen vaccine, there was a few deaths related to blood clots, and so that is an issue, and it mainly affects, I think, women over 45 in this case. So that's a trouble spot, and that of course comes from VAERS reporting. Now, VAERS reporting, as I've talked about before, VAERS reporting doesn't necessarily draw a direct line or a direct link between these. VAERS reporting is anonymous. You can call in, you can report whatever, and then analysts go through and they sift through the data and they try to see if they can find any links between any adverse effects and and if it could be possibly related to the vaccine. So they take this stuff very, very seriously, because it turns out they don't want people dying from the vaccine. Bad for business, definitely. Bad for business, bad for the reputation. Look at what happened to Johnson & Johnson's stock prices when the adverse effects had been reported for its one-shot vaccine, which again is incredibly rare. Nonetheless, they try to draw these weird lines. I mean, for example, oh, you know what? Somebody took the vaccine, had a heart attack. Checkmate, libs. Again, doesn't mean causation. People have had heart attacks before having COVID vaccines. People also have heart attacks after COVID vaccine. That doesn't mean there's a direct line between this. Doesn't mean that there's a direct link between these things. It's like saying, for example, did you know 35% of people who have eaten vanilla ice cream in the last week died of cancer? Well, no, that's insane. Because and what they get from it is, well, obviously the vanilla ice cream is the cause of your cancer. No. That's not true. Outrageous. And you could throw out weirdo numbers about this at all. Do you know 75% of Americans who watch TV eventually get heart disease? What does that have to do with watching TV? Again, a conspiracy theorist will take, and these are all imaginary numbers. I'm just making stuff up, right? They'll say, you understand, it's the TV rays that are giving you the heart disease. So therefore, the TV is literally killing you with the TV rays. Again, and none of this stuff makes sense. It's wild. But it doesn't have to make sense because they don't, they do the logical fallacy of saying that there is correlation without causation. All right. And so here's the thing. And I'm sure a lot of people have been mentioning this. Former Secretary of State Colin Powell. Colin Powell was vaccinated and had a breakthrough infection and recently died. So now, of course, that does unfortunately happen. It's very, very rare. But the condition here that led to his death was having multiple myeloma. Multiple myeloma is a blood cancer. It attacks white blood cells and lowers your immunity. Powell also previously had an operation for prostate cancer back in 2003. So he was immunocompromised. And even with 2 shots of the vaccine, he still his body was not able to produce a robust enough immune response to the Delta variant. And so that's unfortunate, and that does happen. Now, the vaccine does not mean that you're 100% immune to COVID. It doesn't mean you're 100% immune from catching COVID, obviously, and nobody ever claimed that. And if you believe that people were claiming that, you're an absolute liar or have been grossly misinformed. All it means is that, yes, you're less likely to get it than if you were unvaccinated, and you're also a lot less likely to go into the hospital with a serious case of COVID when you've been vaccinated. And so, but understand that anti-vaxxers love to use these logical fallacies, and they do so for a couple of reasons. One, they want to appear smarter than everyone else. They want to appear smarter and more well-read than people who've literally dedicated their entire lives to scientific pursuits. And they also, by the way, can wave a lot of this away. And you see it with the attacks on Fauci, for example. They ascribe terrible motives to people. In this case, scientists, all the scientists, and accuse them usually by picking a figurehead of being worse than Mengele. Mengele is pretty bad. And there were mad scientists, and there were scientists that have done terrible things to people. And of course, we've had that through history. If you ascribe that motive to every single scientist, then you're doing a logical fallacy. But they love to believe that, oh no, these people are mad scientists, or they're in it for the prestigious grant money, which, by the way, not all that prestigious. And by the way, they've been that has unfortunately been pretty effective at getting people to not believe in science. Another good example of this, by the way, is the science on climate change. Well, say the climate scientists, you're just in it for the grant money. You don't actually believe in there's no climate change. What are you talking about? Climate's not changing. Or now climate's always been changing, and it's just not been proven to be, the fault of humanity. Well, that's not true. No, climate is changing, and it is driven by humanity. But they use that same thing. It's the same thought process, and really the same kind of tactic that they use now on vaccines that they used on climate change, on climate science. And so, again, we can literally see the effectiveness of the vaccine, and we can also literally see the effect of climate change as it is happening in real time. So now, again, one last thing. I looked into this doctor, right? And of course, guess what? He's been sued for fraud. He has also been alleged and charged, with exploiting cancer patients for cash while using very expensive treatments that were not shown to have been effective. Also, has a nasty habit of diagnosing nearly every patient he sees with something called heavy metal toxicity. So now, lucky for them, he has a treatment for heavy metal toxicity, but it's going to cost you. And so he prescribes specific dietary supplements to treat that, which again happen to cost a lot of money. And of course, it has absolutely no effect on treating patients. That's why patients afterwards go on to sue this guy because, hey, you just gave me something that doesn't work and I spent all of this money. That's who this guy is. He's a snake oil salesman, a charlatan. And by the way, also in doing some research, I popped into his social media just to see what he's talking about, right? So I found a couple of things that, I wanted to share here. It's from his Twitter. This is what he posted. Inoculate your kids against socialism by having them clean the bathroom, pay them $10, and take away $7 and give it to their sibling who didn't help. Socialism won't seem attractive then. Okay. So, avowed anti-socialist, obviously, who, by the way, doesn't actually understand what socialism is. That's not socialism. Socialism is workers owning the means of production, worker co-ops, things like that. Worker owners of companies doesn't have anything to do with, whatever he was talking about. Come on, ridiculous. And there's one more that I wanted to show you on that. It's something he posted about a European country. He says, let's see. Here in Romania, we the people have won the battle against depopulation of the system through the vaccination program. The government has started closing all vaccination centers. 70% of the population refused to be vaccinated, and all coercive measures have failed. And he says, amazing victory, but mainstream media will never talk about it. They're still going to push their lies and make up of BS and call it science. Of course. Of course. Not only does the guy not understand vaccines, obviously, but also, as I said, socialism. Total right-wing grifter. That's who this guy is. And by the way, let me show you what happened in Romania. So he shared that, Romania, out of, a lot of the European countries, actually does have the lowest vaccination rate, 32%. Terrible. Very, very low numbers. And, well, this is what happened. Oh. Whoops. I mean, what did you expect? Honestly. Not much to celebrate, okay? So understand that these people are frauds. They're dangerous frauds. And they want to make some extra money off their ignorance. Now, understand, I understand that Big Pharma also wants to make money off you. Yeah, of course, right? But at least in this case, you're actually getting medicine and some protection from the virus. You're not just getting fake quack cures. So, like, for example, think about it this way, all right? Big Pharma overcharges you for, okay, let's drop Big Pharma for a second. Big Umbrella. It's raining out. Big Umbrella says, I'm gonna sell you an umbrella. Normally it's $5, but since it's raining, I'm gonna charge you 20. Now that's the American system, right? I mean, we see it all the time with insulin, overcharging. Now, the umbrella still works, it still protects you from the rain, but you're just getting grossly overcharged for it than what it should be. That's the American system in a nutshell. So now these people, guys like this doctor, Mr. Buttar, instead of selling you an umbrella at an inflated price, he sells you a banana and says, don't worry, this will protect you from the rain way better than that umbrella will. No, we got a banana for you. That's going to protect you. Put it on your head and you won't get rained on. And these people, of course, will believe it. The people who follow them. And that's exactly the situation that's going on with all of these grifters. All of these grifters. They're selling you a banana. Now, again, I could go into a little bit more nuanced commentary about, like, okay, how, you know, distrust of pharmaceutical companies for doing the practice of of overcharging for medications that do work, grossly overcharging is creating distrust in the system. And that's absolutely true. But again, they're still selling you the correct medication and not a banana. So just keep that in mind. Criticisms of Big Pharma are absolutely valid as far as their business practices go. But make sure, if you're going to criticize them, still make sure not to go off into crazy land and, you know, criticize the science. Don't do that. Okay. Return to monkey, embrace banana. Yes, embrace banana. Okay. Okay, here we go. You know what Big Pharma and corporate hospitals are benefiting from? Monoclonal therapy costs. If you don't want to support Big Pharma, get vaccinated. That's a good point. Very good point. All right, so let's get to Meghan McCain. Meghan McCain is back on TV, and she does, and she's going to do what she does best, and that is whine.
You are targeted if you're the token conservative, and you are treated differently. And it's been interesting having my book excerpt released today, because people just really don't seem to be surprised at all. But there is validation in hearing it from my mouth, and I felt like it was really time for me to show my story instead of having it through the lens of the liberal media and the liberal people who were leaking from internally on the show I worked on. And I felt like it was important for mothers to hear that it's okay. You don't have to put yourself or your pregnancies in a position where you could possibly have your health or your mental health put in a position of toxicity. And I decided to leave after I became a mother, and that was ultimately the game-changing moment for me.
Meghan, you even went as far as to say you felt like you'd been slapped, and you called the work environment, you know, toxic, direct, and purposeful hostility. And none of that looked fun to me. And I can say, in complete honesty, I've had minor little skirmishes here and there with a few on-air talent, but nothing like this at all, ever, not even close. I mean, this is like a cancerous environment.
It's been difficult to open up to people like you, Sean, but I felt like it was important to say that there is real trauma that is involved when you are targeted and targeted and targeted for not voting for President Obama, for being a pro-life woman. And I don't think that people who go into liberal spaces, which is basically every other space except Fox News and media, I don't think you should be punished for it, and I don't think your personal life should be impacted. And that's unfortunately exactly what happened to me.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot to say about that. Oh, I can't believe I was treated so unfairly. Oh, look at the toxicity. It's so toxic. They treated me so poorly. I can't believe people would challenge me on my beliefs on a talk show that was set up to literally do that. Really? 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 Now, okay, so here's what she alleges, right? So this is the behavior that was so toxic, or at least part of the behavior that was so toxic at The View. When she returned from her maternity leave, this is what McCain had said. She said, "You missed me so much, Joy. You missed me so much when I was on maternity leave. You missed me so much. You missed fighting with me." To which Joey Behar responded, "I did not. I did not miss you. Zero." Oh no, oh my God. Wow, so toxic. Oh, so horrible. Oh no! Wow, oh, that wounded you deeply. In fact, apparently she said she cried. She felt like she got slapped, cried. She threw up in a bucket. Backstage, oh, it's so horrible. Oh my God. Here's the thing. I would probably say the same thing. I'm like, no, of course I don't miss you. No, not at all. I don't miss fighting with you for sure. But then, again, that's it, right? That's the toxicity. Really tame. Snowflake, sad baby. If you've ever, oh my God, God forbid that she ever, you know, go on YouTube and look at some of the comments that we get. Holy crap. Terrible. And let me just say this, right? We all know toxicity exists everywhere. It's literally called humanity. They're just nasty people. And look, there are nasty people who are on the progressive side. There are nasty people who are on the liberal side. There's nasty people on the conservative side. Absolutely online. Sure. We could all admit that. But here's the thing. Conservative victimhood is super, super hypocritical. All right? Super hypocritical. And understand that it's because they do say and do some of the most horrible shit online. I mean, and not just online, by the way, in person as well. Again, it's not the liberals or progressives that are outside of abortion clinics or the Planned Parenthoods for women coming in. By the way, there's a lot of Planned Parenthoods that don't even do abortions, right? They just go there for example, you know, health screenings, women's health screenings, reproductive screenings, cancer screenings, things like that. Even treatment that is unaffordable for a lot of women through our, you know, healthcare system, they can get treatment either at a really reduced cost or even free from Planned Parenthoods. So they'll go there, and even if they had an abortion, who the fuck cares? It's not my place to say whether or not they can have an abortion or not. But again, a conservative says, no, it is my business what you do with your life and with your body. Because that fetus, that developing fetus, is literally a part of your body until it can survive without feeding off your nutrients and your bloodstream, your blood supply, and your body, et cetera, et cetera. But no, they'll scream at those women going in there, baby killer, degenerate slut, horrible person. And by the way, some have even bombed abortion clinics. And so that's an example of how this translates into the real world. This horrible rhetoric that you hear from the right wing. Okay? And again, there's other stuff that's actually kind of amusing. Like, I don't know, I just get amused every time I hear, oh, liberalism is a mental disorder. Oh, yes. Yeah, okay, buddy. Yeah, sure. You know, like, that's ridiculous. But the thing is, again, the most damage that they do is towards marginalized communities. For example, the gay and transgender people, right? Constantly get attacked as pedos and rapists. They say horrible things about them. They say horrible things about immigrants. They're dirty. They're filthy. They're coming to take your job and rape your wife. They're going to do all these horrible things. And of course, their followers will then take that action into the real world and do violence against immigrants. I mean, we saw that during the pandemic. There was a gigantic spike in anti-Asian hate crimes as a result of conservatives saying Wu flu and, oh, it's the China flu and all this stuff, all this disgusting stuff, you know, aimed at like people who didn't do anything. They didn't do anything wrong. They were Asian Americans being attacked as a result of people, you know, these conservatives that will gin people up against Asians. And so that's the thing, right? There are literally people on the right that want trans and gay people dead. That's it, dead. Women who want bodily autonomy, either dead or in prison if they get an abortion. That's what they want. I'm sorry, but you don't get to claim to be pro-life if your beliefs are for the use of the death penalty, okay? You don't get to be pro-life when your policies throw people in prison for a plant. When your belief system rips food out of children's mouths because the mother happens to be poor. You don't get to do that without getting your ass called out. And that's understand, this is the big problem with people like Meghan McCain, right? Where she says, no. You can't call me out. You're not allowed. I am allowed to have my incredibly wrong, terrible opinion and not get challenged at all whatsoever. you know what? Because I'm a strong, conservative woman. And if you criticize me, you're sexist. Cancel culture. Cancel culture. They're canceling me. No, get over it. Get over yourself. You know, again, the argument here is, look, conservatives, we're willing to have discussions with you if your discussions are based in factual information. So here's the thing. I'm totally fine with having discussions, debates, and things if we can agree on objective reality. If you don't have objective reality, if we cannot agree in the basic tenets of the real world and facts, then we're not going to be able to have a discussion. Because we're talking, you know, science, factual information, studies, etc., and you're talking gibberish. Well, you're arguing that your gibberish should be held as an equal viewpoint to factual information, and I don't believe that. And then when you say, no, I'm not going to have a conversation with somebody that's spouting nonsense gibberish, and I'm not going to treat that equally, suddenly we're doing cancel culture. Suddenly we're the bad guys, and we're stifling free speech. No, bullshit. Get the fuck out of here with that absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And by the way, right, and you can have your opinions on things, you can feel certain ways about. We don't have any problem with that. But again, if you're going to have an argument, if you're going to engage in dialogue and conversation, then you need to back it up as with actual information here, and not lies and bullshit or your feelings. So let me give you an example of, by the way, when Meghan McCain made an outrageous lie in order to make a political point. Back in 2020, when there were some Black Lives Matter protests in New York, so she said she was in New York. She actually wasn't in New York, but she said, my neighborhood in Manhattan is eviscerated. It looks like a war zone. Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo are an utter disgrace. Now, I agree that Andrew Cuomo, absolute utter disgrace. This is not our America. Our leaders have abandoned us and continue to let great American cities burn to the ground and be destroyed. I never could have fathomed this. Now, burning to the ground. What city is burned to the ground? What city is burnt to the ground? Show me an example. No entire cities have burned to the ground. Okay, like somebody set an Arby's on fire. Oh my God. No, you shouldn't do that. Obviously, we're against that. By the way, you'll remember the video during the BLM protests where there was a riot that was happening, and there was a man with a red umbrella going out there just casually smashing windows. I remember reporting at the time, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who this guy is, but I had the feeling that he was a provocateur. Turns out, later on, actually just probably last week, a report comes out that this guy is a member of a white nationalist group. Wow, shocker, surprise! Again, member of a right-wing group, doing provocation, being a provocateur, causing destruction and violence, so that then later on, right-wingers can blame it on BLM, Black people, Antifa, etc., etc. This is what they do. Understand, this is what they do. Now, back to Meghan McCain here, which, by the way, no city was destroyed. No entire cities just burnt down, all right? And in fact, her neighbor fact-checked her, literally lived in the building next to her. In the same building as her, and said, Meghan, we live in the same building, and I just walked outside. It's fine. No war zone. What is she talking about? Complete lies. Complete lies. But understand, like, if you fact check her, if you call her out for literally lying to your face, lying to the country to make some nonsense political point, that's toxicity. Now, that said, look, I've had my issues with Whoopi Goldberg, okay? And I've had my issues with Joy Behar, and some of the hosts being, not so nice to progressives. And for Whoopi Goldberg, openly hostile to progressives, blaming them for some of the problems. And I don't agree with that. But like, okay, you have your disagreements, right? And you call it out. Thing is, with people like Meghan McCain, if you call that out at all, you're being terrible, you're being toxic, because you're not kissing my ass and allowing me to lie outrageously. And that's the entire problem this year. Okay. Fuck me, I still have more to go. Let's have some fun, though, before we get outraged again. The spectacular fall of Rudy Giuliani continues, and somehow now involves Abe Lincoln.
Virginia, vote against the man who dishonored our past by selling my bedroom hundreds and hundreds of times to scoundrels in a pay-for-play scheme. In my time, we had a name for men who sold bedrooms for one night. In your time, the name is Terry McAuliffe. End the Clinton, please, once and for all.
Wow. What the fuck? I cannot, look, I can't believe he did Abe Lincoln dirty like that. Actually, you know what? I can. It is Rudy Giuliani after all. Okay, so obviously, he's got a bone to pick with Terry McAuliffe, weirdly enough. Now, Terry McAuliffe, of course, is running against Glenn Youngkin, and Youngkin, of course, is very, very pro-Trump. In fact, in one of the rallies that he had, he was actually celebrating the flag, that one of the flags that was carried during the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Yeah, fun times. Real fun. But, all right. But what is he talking about? What's he talking about? A Lincoln bedroom? Why is he dressed? Why has he got like a Lincoln filter on? That's really weird. Well, it turns out that he said that McAuliffe came up with a scheme of selling out, allowing donors to sleep in Lincoln's bedroom. Oh my God, what a scandal. For one, I don't think anybody cares, but okay, well, let's tackle this. Let's go and let's see if it's true, right? Because I guess some people might be offended with, donors sleeping in Lincoln's bedroom or whatever, having some weird sleepover. So I did a fact check, and it turns out, no, Terry McAuliffe is not responsible. He did not scheme to make sure that he would sell out or sell Lincoln's bedroom or anything like that. Now, here's the real story. So this goes all the way back to the Clinton administration. Okay. Now, McAuliffe was a DNC finance chairman at the time. And they were, the Republicans had just won Congress, both houses. And they're like, oh, man, yeah, we're doing really bad. We got to pick this up, right? And so he decides to write a memo to Nancy Heinrich. Now, that's Bill Clinton's director of Oval Office operations. And he suggests that, hey, you know what you should do? You should have Bill Clinton meet with more donors. No, I don't think that's a good idea at all. Honestly, no, less donors, meet with real people so you can actually serve real people. But of course, Bill Clinton and the DLC serve corporations and were courting wealthy donors. And that's exactly what this was. So now he suggested that the president meet donors, big donors, for meals, coffee, golf games, morning jogs, et cetera, right? So, cultivating donors, which is a lot like the school that, for example, Kirsten Sinema, her class teaches how to cultivate big donors. Okay, great. So now, fairly standard fundraising practices, meeting with those people, doing that. I don't like it. I'm not in favor of it. I don't like lobbying. I don't like lobbyists. I know lobbyists, very, very sad to hear that as they sleep in their giant piles of money. But hey, I'm not in favor. We should do publicly financed elections and not have any big donors. That said, okay, That memo did not propose, this goes to what Rudy Giuliani was saying, it did not propose that donors would stay overnight at the White House. The prospect of sleepovers, however, was mentioned in notes on the front of the memo. In fact, Hernreich, sorry, and this turned into a gigantic scandal, by the way. So this is Republicans all the way back in 1994 saying, oh my God, can you believe that they would give their donors preferential treatment? The Democrats? What a scandal. We're going to go after them, even though we also give our donors preferential treatment. Okay, well, yeah, great. Little fun hypocrisy in that regard. But no, again, everything's a scandal with Republicans. They haven't changed. They were the same way back in 1994 than they are now. Actually, I think that they're actually far worse, but still, same kind of thing. Nonsense scandals, nonsense. All right, so now in a deposition to the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, Heinrich said that in the word overnights she had written on the front of the memo next to a list of top 10 donors, supporters, they called them. And she said in the deposition, quote, I don't honestly know if that was my idea or if it was the president's idea and under what circumstances I wrote that. A little bit of a shady answer. We actually do know that it was Bill Clinton's idea. But she said, if I indeed had a conversation with Terry, I'm not certain I did, but if indeed I had it, then it could have, although it could have just as well not have come from him. Honestly, I just don't know, really. So it's a very, non-answer answer. I don't know who did it. Standard politician answer when they don't want to answer the question. Now, on the back of the memo, Clinton wrote a note to Heinrich saying, quote, ready to start overnights right away. Now, knowing what we know about Bill Clinton, of course, Bill Clinton is all into the overnights. Oh, yeah, overnights with the donors. Love it. But seriously, though, the allegation that Terry McAuliffe came up with that on his own when it was clearly Bill Clinton, who Bill Clinton, by the way, came out and said, yeah, that was totally my idea. I love the idea of overnights. Let's do some overnights all the time. Yeah. Oh, I love them. Again, McAuliffe, no, he didn't do it. Now, it's not to say that he wasn't on board with that idea, of course. If you want to criticize him for that, okay, that's fine. But he didn't sit there and scheme with Bill Clinton. It was just an afterthought idea. I was like, oh, hey, you know what might be a good idea if we do overnights for an extra incentive for the donors. It's not like this that Republicans, don't also do that kind of stuff. It's stupid, fundraising stuff, but that's what they do, right? Now, imagine being Rudy Giuliani. I know, already a terrible thought, and I'm sorry. But, okay, and working for one of the most personally corrupt presidents in history. And again, a lot of our presidents have been corrupt, and Trump is just one of the worst because he went super personal corruption. I mean, basically putting government money into his own pocket through his businesses. And so very, very nakedly, openly corrupt. And then working for that guy, imagine working for that guy, and then complaining about corruption using a crappy filter on what is this? Is this on Cameo? On Twitter? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. I think the only thing that could have made this even more cringe would be, or actually no, not cringe, because it's already super cringe. You can't get more cringe than this. What actually would have made it better is if he were leaking hair dye and having his background be the Four Seasons Landscaping Club. That would be fun. Lots of fun. All right. Let's go to outrage. Yeah, okay. President Joe Biden is dropping free college from his Build Back Better program. So now he has decided to cave to Senator Joe Manchin and drop the cost of the social spending package down from $3.5 trillion to somewhere around the range of $1.75 to $1.9 trillion, according to a person familiar with the talks. So, of course, in order to bring the cost down, they've had to jettison some things. So, the first to go, free community college, because fuck them kids, right? Now, Biden also indicated that the child tax credit would be likely extended, but for only 1 year instead of what they originally planned on, and added that they would be means tested. So now that's everything that Joe Manchin had wanted in that, because apparently Joe Manchin runs the country with an iron fist alongside the Senate parliamentarian. Most powerful people in the country, right there. Senate parliamentarian to Joe Manchin. So now Biden also indicated to the group that he would reduce the proposed funding for home care for the elderly and disabled from down to less than $250 billion. It was originally $400 billion. That's what Democrats wanted to keep, so that's almost a 50% cut. And negotiators are weighing reducing the duration of paid leave to 4 weeks, down from 12 weeks. So that's it. Free college, free community college, gutted, gone. Paid leave and home care, gutted. Tax credit, gutted, means tested. Now, the only thing that they plan to keep so far, that's a big ticket item that they have really campaigned on, is the expansion of Medicare. So that was, of course, one of the things championed most by Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, that includes, of course, hearing, dental, and vision. But that's got some issues as well, considering how you have Kyrsten Sinema. Kyrsten Sinema takes millions of dollars in bribes from drug companies, and insurance companies, and she does not want Medicare to negotiate drug prices. So again, big cornerstone of this legislation was free community college. And it's to make sure, of course, people don't get weighed down with as much debt from school, even though I don't think there should be any debt from getting an education. Because getting an education, understand that it's not like super easy peasy. This requires just as much time and effort as an investment as working a job. Again, if you're a full-time student, you're basically a full-time worker. But you're paying for the pleasure to go there. And so, and a lot of people, as a result, are going into massive debt. But Joe Manchin, and even this modest proposal, which, by the way, was proposed by even Barack Obama back in 2015, during his administration. And so this has been something that was supposedly a Democratic priority, to do free community college. And by the way, since it hasn't been done federally, a lot of states have picked it up. Tennessee, I believe, has a free community college program that is deeply popular with the American people, with the people in Tennessee. And it works, But no, Manchin says, absolutely not. We don't want people to get dependent on the government. We don't want people to be entitled for things. Oh, yes. Now, Joe Manchin, by the way, Joe Manchin, I love how the narrative has always been traditionally the so-called moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin, well, they're the real Democrats, and people like Bernie Sanders, they're the outliers. Now, Bernie Sanders is an independent, to be fair, but you have people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat, is more progressive than certainly Joe Manchin, and one of the more progressive members of the party, they're not the real Democrats. They're the problem. The squad's the problem, and it's the moderate Democrats. Those are the good people. Well, in this case, no. Actually, in most cases, let's just say that. In all these cases, moderate Democrats. Now, what's interesting is moderate Democrats have always played this block on the party, right? But we're never blamed for it. It was always the progressives. That's their fault for asking for too much, right? The media would always do this game. Now it's a little bit different. Now there are people that are pointing out correctly that it's the so-called moderates that are the problem. Pretty much the entirety of the Democratic Party was behind the $3.5 trillion compromise bill. And I say that it was a compromise because it was originally $6 trillion. But no, it was compromised down to 3.5. That should have been the line. That should have been the line. And now Joe Biden says, no, I don't believe in that. We're going to do 1 to 7 or 1.9 so that we can make Joe Manchin happy. Now, I read something interesting today. There are reports that Joe Manchin might end up quitting the Democratic Party anyway. Might be doing a little bit of a Jim Justice move. If you can remember Jim Justice, another West Virginia conservative who was a Democrat, and I think he went from Democrat to independent, and then to, I think, straight up Republican. Joe Manchin, article out that says, oh, he might quit the party and become an independent. And then, of course, it won't be long until he actually goes to the party that he belongs to, and that's the Republican Party. Yeah. So, now for my, look, I know a lot of Democrats are going to get mad, but, we need the 50, we need him as a Democrat. Why, when he doesn't vote with the Democrats? He just doesn't. So for my part, bye, Felicia, get the fuck out. You never belonged here anyway. Go to your real party, right? Go somewhere else. And now, again, Manchin is going against the rest of the Democratic Party, along with Kyrsten Sinema. As I said, most of them are on board with the $3.5 trillion compromise bill. Understand that, though, this is an absolute failure of Biden for negotiating it down so far. And he can't help but compromise in the compromise instead of actually drive a hard line, which he should have done. He should have done. Should have went after the donors. Should have went after the corruption. Should have pointed out the fact that Joe Manchin is a literal coal baron who gets, double his congressional salary from his investments in dirty fossil fuels. By the way, Joe Biden also tossed the clean electricity plan in order to appease Manchin, because again, Manchin gets almost $500,000 a year from burning waste coal in his plants. So, and by the way, the bipartisan corporate bill has all sorts of goodies for Joe Manchin, and it was supposed to be the fact that, okay, you get your corporate goodies, whatever. That will, unfortunately, do worse things for climate change, but it gets balanced out by the pro-climate positions in the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package. That was supposed to be the compromise. Joe Manchin says, no, I'm going to go in here and fucking wreck the whole thing. That's exactly what I'm doing, because my donors don't want anything. Now, I originally remember when Manchin was talking about supporting a $4 trillion reconciliation package. What happened now? No, my donors called. My donors don't like this. And also, my pocketbook doesn't like this. I just don't like it at all. And so, unfortunately, our planet's on fire, and it's going to get worse, and Joe Biden is playing patty cakes with the coal baron. Literal coal baron. And that's what he is. That's how broken and dysfunctional our system is when two people, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, or maybe three people, the Senate parliamentarian, is not even elected, can hold up and grind our entire process to a halt and go against something the vast majority of the American people support. So one more thing that I want to mention is Joe Manchin's entitlement mentality, right? He talks about this all the time. So he's like, well, I just don't want the entitlement mentality. I don't want to foster a sense of government dependency. Here's the thing. He gets all this stuff, child tax credit, for example, right? So child tax credit would benefit, it's already been benefiting families. And if it continued, it could eliminate 50% of child poverty. Well, that's good. I would like to eliminate 100% of child poverty, but 50% is pretty good. Yeah, let's go for that, right? Well, no, he doesn't like people getting things for free unless it's him. Because he literally sleeps in a houseboat making money from passive income, from his coal companies, from his different investments. He doesn't have to work for it. It just comes to him. Work free. But he says you need a work requirement if you're going to get this tax, this tax credit. Work requirement, work requirement. As research notes, adding a work requirement to that tax credit would punish poor children and is unlikely to impact parents' labor force participation anyway. So it's not going to solve what he sees as a problem, parents not participating in the labor force. This is from analysis from the Center on Budget Policy Priorities and a recent paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research. In numbers, we're talking about West Virginians here, 190,000 West Virginians could end up losing that benefit as a result of the changes that Joe Manchin has pushed. And Joe Manchin doesn't give a goddamn. And speaking of West Virginian voters overwhelmingly support the Build Back Better plan, as well as the vast majority of Americans. The only people that it's not popular with are the donors who hired Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to kill the bill. That's what that is. Dependency on government is a right-wing document. It distorts reality. Billionaires get free money from the government all the time from our tax contributions because they own the politicians. 100% Desert Claire. That's a great comment from our YouTube comment section. 100%. Smartest audience. Let's see. Someone earlier mentioned that reporting that Manchin was threatening to leave Dems. Yep, as I talked about that. Let's see. SBloom85, our mod here on Twitch, says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Democrats like these, who needs Republicans? Yeah, and that's the thing. We're not even negotiating with the Republicans, which of course we shouldn't have to, as we have control of the government, or at least we theoretically have control of the government, have a majority. But no, it's always been a negotiation with the donors. And let's see, a Facebook comment here. Let's see. One has to wonder how much gleaning he has been up to, then takes that to his new party, beings that don't have a platform to run on. Yeah, I mean, they run on basically outrage and tax cuts for the rich. Well, at least that's what they. All right. So that's it. That's all I got time for. I keep running way over. Supposed to be an hour, it's like an hour and a half a whole week. So I don't know. I think it's have a problem. Talk too much. Too much detail. Too much context. I don't know. All right. Anyway, that's all I got today. Thank you for going around the nation. Me, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very, very important that you do so. Very helpful. If you haven't, look, we put up a lot of content on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So please check that out. If you're a Twitch viewer and you want to see some of the content that you might have missed, please check that out. That's our Facebook page, or whatever Facebook's going to be called afterwards. I don't know. Facebook.com/Jeff Waller Show. You can check it out there, or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WaldorfNation. So thank you, all that wonderful stuff, helping us out. Oh, do we have any super chats? We do. Ronnie Lama Richardson says, cancer update, melanoma removed, now immunotherapy for a year. You must know $60,000 a dose for a year, highway robbery. Luckily, I have insurance. Thank you, Ronnie Lama Richardson, for the update. And I'm glad things are going better. And I hope to see that you have a continued good recovery, and that you're back up to full strength. Thank you for that super chat, by the way. Let's see. Thank you for all the new follows, by the way. Let's see. Genesis Lazy Duck, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Pluminati17, thank you for the follow. Fire Raven 5, Carl Dergrobe, Dragon Tool, and Valerie Fisher. Also, thank you for the new follows on our Twitch channel. I appreciate that. Artist Gaverlin, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate that. Love you all. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See y'all tomorrow. Have a good evening.
How you like that, boy?
Big, massive dump.
How you like that, boy, idiot?
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.